Hi everyone. We've got Angela Ruske with us today. She is the Assistant Director of Sport at St. Peter's, and she was part of the coaching team that took St. Peter's through to win the New Zealand Secondary School Nationals last year, which is awesome. Hi Angela, how are you?
Good, thank you.
That's good. So you've got quite an extensive background in sports as both player and coach. So you played at a regional level for netball as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your netball journey to start off with?
Yeah, I probably started playing netball just like probably most key netballers at the age of about 6. Spent most of my preschool years being dragged around the netball courts with my mum. She was an avid netballer, and so we all kind of grew up like that. My probably first memory is getting the first pair of those Bartabulla ankle boots that we used to play in with no sort of padding or tread, but we thought they were cool. And then the real, going down to netball early in the morning because we were always playing the first round, and it would be really freezing cold and icy, and then always waiting for the end of the game when we'd go to the tuck shop for the hot Milo. So I don't think age much, except that probably got a bit more choice nowadays in the tuck shop. So yeah, it's kind of always grew up around a family of sport and with netball. And then my first probably experience of playing proper regional netball was back in the Thames Valley. So I grew up in Thames, Coromandel, and I think the Thames Valley under 15 team was the first rep team that I played for. And we used to have to travel like a 30-minute trip to Pyro for trials and callbacks, and it was it was just like part of living in a rural netball community, I guess. And Thames Valley was a really proud netball region, and still is. And I was just kind of fortunate that the year I came through high school at Thames, we had a really strong team. A mum used to coach the team there, and it was the first time that we'd ever won Waikato secondary schools from little old Thames. Yeah, and that was back when the courts were at Cobham Drive. So that was like, we kind of came over and it was like a one-day tournament, I think, then. And so that was like quite a big thing for our little high school. And then a lot of that team went on to play in that rep team, that first rep team that I played. I think we had 7 players from our school that made the Thames Valley team. So that was kind of my first introduction to kind of regional netball. And then went on in my last year at high school at Thames, played Thames Valley Seniors. And that was back when there were 4 grades at national tournaments, so an A, B, C and D grade. And tournament was a week long with 2, similar to what New Zealand secondary schools is now, but you kind of get down to one day and it's not quite as long. Yeah. So that was kind of my Thames Valley era. And then I moved to Hamilton to attend Waikato University, and trialled for the Fairfield United Club. I don't think the club exists anymore, but it was a club that Lynn Gunson was the kind of club captain and playing back then. She was still a Silver Fern. And after quite a few trials, made the second team there. Lynn was wanting to play in the second team and then bring some younger players through, and the aim of having 2 Fairfield United teams in the A grade or the Premier grade then, and that was still at Cobham Drive. I think my first year. Second year we moved. I was thinking it was great because I was a university student and netball was just down the road, and then in my second year moved out to Minogue with no transport. But yeah, it was like much better facilities where you are now. And then I think in my first year for that club, they wanted me to play like goal defence. I mean, I'm only about 165, but the whole idea was to develop my that would try and break the ball before it got into the goal circle, because I was absolutely hopeless at trying to get any make any effect on a defence of a shot or rebounds. So that it was good. It like taught me a lot about the game, I guess, doing that. The opportunity to play with with some obviously experienced and really good players. And then in that first year, I was still 17 in my first year at uni. I was fortunate to make the Waikato Premier team, and we attended our first New Zealand tournament in Gisborne. And I think that was the first year that that Waikato actually won national tournament outright. But there were a heap of silver ferns in the team. I think I probably was a full-time ball carrier and water bottle carrier. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, I think back to that team, like to get on the court was like a privilege, and then not be too freaked out by playing with these, several silver ferns. So that was a really great experience, and it was a really good introduction coming from a rural region and kind of seeing what the Waikato netball was about. And we still played in those the woolen tartan skirts then, which were they were really cool. They're hot, but it was kind of
I think we've got some upstairs in our office upstairs still of those old.
Oh yeah. They were pretty cool. They had a point of difference, I guess. So that was kind of like my playing background, and then I did a bit of travelling, and in between that kind of went back to Thames, so played some years more for Thames Valley, and then moved back to Hamilton and played some more netball with Waikato. So that was kind of my playing career. And then in the very first year of the ANZ, what's now called the ANZ Premiership, and which was my kind of last year playing represented netball, was for the Comets, which I think that was one team that they phased out. It's come back in now as Bico, but it was one of the teams of South Auckland. So and Ruth Aiken was the coach that year. So that was kind of my last year of playing. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's a really awesome, journey throughout. Done a lot of, representative regional type level stuff. Being in a generation like growing up with parents that are involved in sports, and yourself now working in sport and coaching and everything, what do you think the biggest values are out of being involved in sports?
Yeah, I think it gives you a really, it's great for your well-being, obviously, just being active and physical. But I think it definitely makes you a well-rounded person. I think you've got a lot of juggling and time management when you're involved in sport. And I think it helps you be, organising your day. You've still got either study or you've got a job to get in sports, kind of that, I don't know, I always say it's almost like a stress release of managing and a distraction from your day-to-day things that you have to do. So I think it teaches you a lot of skills about people, about relationships, about communication, resilience. Resilience is probably the biggest thing I think sport gives you, especially as a competitor or a player. You're learning to deal with lots of highs and lows, and I think probably the biggest thing I've got is working hard to make progress, or working hard to get some rewards. And I think that is so transferable in life in general.
You actually have to work to get where you want to be. That's huge, I think.
Yeah.
So what kind of, like, I don't know if it's the right words, but like, what kind of person is your favorite kind of person to coach? Like, is it how, I don't know if that's how you would say it, but you know what I mean? Like your favorite person to like get into and really teach them something.
Yeah. So I think it's, I don't know, I've done quite a bit of work on growth mindset. And I think, over the years of coaching, I think definitely people or players that have that growth mindset. So, that willingness to learn, they have no barriers to try something new. They're really open-minded, and they have that kind of can-do attitude, and good at communicating. I think, a lot of players can have all the natural talent in the world, but if they're not coachable or they're limited in their thinking, then, you do struggle with coaching those sorts of players. And I quite often, I quite often notice players who have played a range of sports in their, growing up. I think especially those who are involved in like athletics and gymnastics, they kind of seem to be sports where they seem to have really good fundamental body movements, and they might not be like real talented netballers at the moment, but they, because I believe everyone's got the ability to be a good player, but I think it's the experiences that they've had before and opening them up into whether they're coachable or not. And I kind of like, I've always had this kind of, I guess in all the sports that I coach, I've always had this philosophy that you coach the person, not the sport. And I think that's really crucial to being a successful coach, because, if you can't connect connect with them as a person, like off the court, then, or you don't know about them and what makes them tick, then, and you don't really understand how they learn best, then I think you're always going to have that difficult relationship. Because like coaching netball or coaching a sport or the skills, that's kind of the easy part. But I think coaching the person has always been a really big focus of mine. And I think, it's a successful kind of philosophy that I've found in the past.
Yeah, especially a team, because there's so many people, then you have to like find out how each one ticks. So it's a lot more in depth than just say like gymnastics, where you just got to focus on that one person. And then make them clicking together as well is another kind of big thing.
Yeah. I guess that's what's quite nice about teenagers, or that 13 to kind of 18 bracket, is that they're also most of them are ready to soak up everything, and they're really passionate about it.
What's the biggest thing you took out of winning the championships last year? And what was the most kind of like exciting thing? And
I mean, it probably sounds a little bit cliche, but I think for us, like at New Zealand Secondary Schools, it was not the result, and just trusting each other when we're down there. And at New Zealand Secondary Schools, like that whole week, we never actually spoke as a team or as coaches about winning. Like that word never kind of came into it, which I kind of reflected at the end. I don't think it was it was probably a subconscious thing, but it wasn't. Like, I'd make sure I never talked about it in team talks or anything like that. And it was all we just did. It was talked about the tasks and the responsibilities that each of us had to do on court, the game plan. And it was almost kind of an unspoken expectation. You never heard the players talk about, oh, I really want to win this game, or we really want to beat them, or win this, we're capable of winning this. Like that was kind of never spoken about. And I think that was probably a really good thing, that everyone within themselves kind of might have had that goal at the end, but we didn't focus on it and we didn't have to talk about it. I think all those other things, just about what we needed to do individually and as a team, was the priorities. And I think that was probably a big learning. Also, I think it was a huge benefit that we were under the radar a little bit. I think some teams were thought it might have been a bit of a freak occurrence that we made the finals at Upper North Islands at Eunice.
So you've also coached like a lot of other like athletics and stuff like that, and quite done quite well there as well. So what's your biggest kind of achievements in the athletics kind of area?
I love my athletics coaching. I think it's a really great balance between coaching winter team sports and then coaching individual sports. So I coach a range of athletes from kind of the 400 meters sprint distance through to 5,000, 3,000, 5,000. 5 of the athletes I coach are in New Zealand Secondary School representatives and have made either New Zealand age group or athletics executive, and have taken 4 New Zealand teams away to international competitions. And then have secured American track and field scholarships, which is a pathway that I really encourage. I think that's really exciting for athletes. And then so that's kind of like pretty much the summer, takes over most of the summer, and a lot of those distances kind of cross over into cross country. So there's always around June, July, which is a bit of a juggle with coaching netball, and then the cross country, the kind of top cross country athletes that head off to nationals. But I encourage all the athletes and that are coached to play a team sport in winter or play another sport. I think that's really important for their sporting development and perspective and responsibilities of being in a team. Because athletics is predominantly an individual sport. So if you can kind of give them that experience of being in a team as well. And I just think it's, I know there's a lot of stuff in the Sport New Zealand as well, which I really align with, that we shouldn't be specialising too soon. I think it is really important. It's kind of done a full circle where specialisation was the big key, but over my years of coaching, I think definitely makes better athletes across all sports if they've got that range of sports. So it's kind of quite often when I have athletes or go away with New Zealand teams and I find out they're netballers or basketballers, it's kind of quite neat to see that you kind of understand why they're excelling in their athletics.
I feel like one thing I've noticed with those people that play lots of different sports. They just move better. They have that better body movement and ability to change.
Yeah. And they seem to be, I think injuries are another good thing about that. Having it balanced across a few sports. Quite often those who have, like a lot of athletes or netballers have been swimmers as well. And I think that's a really good background for sport, because it's, off feet, low impact, and really good for recovery as well. So quite often I do find that those who are doing a range of sports that aren't using the same muscle groups, are more injury free.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the lockdown, so like COVID-19, and the impact it will have on our sports this year and maybe even next year?
I'm kind of hoping that we may be able to still achieve some sort of regional competition, but and probably have to be quite creative how we go about that. But I also think that sport is going to take a real surge post kind of as we're coming out of COVID-19. I think there's going to be a real surge in children, teenagers. We're the current world champions, and everyone wants to be aligned with a successful sport. And I think from like the netballers, like our premier team squad at the moment, they're even more motivated and hungry to get out there. They're training really hard. So they're kind of, keen to get their sport or get something from their sports. But how that looks, and obviously we're going to be controlled by other people making those decisions. But it would be nice for, especially I kind of feel for the ones in their last year at school. That would be, they're kind of the tough ones across all sports, where they might just have their final year modified or taken away from them.
Yeah, that'll be quite sad for those year 13s that if we don't get any tournaments for them.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll think of something once we're out of this to replace it if we don't get a full season. Well, we won't get a full season, but so you must be never home then.
Sometimes. It's actually, I think this is like the first April actually that I've been home, because our daughter actually studies and runs track over in the USA. So April's quite a good time at the end of the athletic season before netball, where we quite often travel. And so I was kind of like actually quite enjoying being here for April. It makes the winter go really quick. That's one good thing about netball. I know people always go on about winter and how cold it is, but it never seems to be like that, because you're always busy with netball. So I guess that's kind of a good thing. But we husband and I, we love travelling, so that's getting more and more difficult. Well, obviously it's going to be a while before we do more of that, but obviously it gets a bit more difficult with all my coaching commitments and work, and also with his work as well. But we try and make that a priority once a year somewhere, and obviously with Ariana, over in the States, that's kind of a good incentive to go places. So we do a lot of tramping. We quite often tie in a lot of our overseas trips with great hikes and that. We went to Peru last year to do the Inca Trail, which was really cool. Not this year, because a few people got stuck there. And try and do a lot of hikes in that round summer in New Zealand, and quite avid gardeners. So there's kind of there is time for doing some things. I'm actually, it's been quite good in this last month, actually, just being able to kind of put more time into those extra little hobbies that you kind of don't always do as well as you could. So is it just you and your husband and your bubble at home? And Ariana's home. She came home from the US, and she's just so she's just completing her final semester, so she's got her nose in her books for most of the time. But it has been really nice to have her home. She was she's only coming for three weeks when her university went online, but obviously when things escalated, she's quite happy to be back here at the moment. So she was going to be graduating in May, but obviously the graduation ceremony will be kind of put back to next year, I think.
What are you doing in your bubble to keep active and keep mentally sane during this time?
Definitely keeping active. Anyone that knows me knows I really sit still. In fact, sitting here for this interview is probably the stillest I've sit for a while. So 2 days before lockdown, at our sport management department, I put a challenge to them that when we go into lockdown, that we start either training for a half marathon walk or a marathon run. So we set up a little little page, and we record our times, and the walkers, I think they're up to 18K. So I send them little training programs, and they quite a good challenge. So that's definitely keeping us busy. It's been quite cool seeing their journey as well, and plenty of banter. So that's quite good.
We'll probably wrap it up here, but before we go, do you have any like tips or anything for up and coming netballers?
Yeah, you've got some sort of routine to your day is going to help you kind of when we come out of that. And like learning a new skill is always good. There's some really cool netball apps on online at the moment, and we quite often just send them to our players and say, hey, try this, you know, a little ball drill that's kind of a bit outside the square. And I think that's, you know, as probably a key piece of advice to netballers out there is to, you know, it doesn't take a lot to do 10 minutes of skills. You know, if you're not really keen on fitness, you can still keep your ball skills going and add in a little bit of fitness in, because, you know, when we do come out of this, you know, everyone wants to be in the best possible position. So we don't know when our first games or trainings are going to be, but you definitely want to be, you know, ahead and ready to go. So yeah, I kind of have memories back when I was, you know, 12 or 13 and banging the ball against my grandmother's wall because it was a nice flat wall and being yelled at. But, you know, and coming up with, you know, we had one of the players, they said, oh, you know, want to do some ladder work, but they didn't have a ladder. But it was like, just get some chalk or some masking tape and just put it on the concrete. You know, you just like, there's always ways around it. And I think that's a really good thing about this COVID-19 is that everyone's kind of being creative. A little bit of skills daily and keeping active just means you're ready for whatever we throw at you when we all come out of this.
Yeah, because we will be throwing something. There will be something coming up. So being as ready as you can, I guess, is the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your time with us, such a busy lady. And giving us a bit of an insight into your life and your life as a coach and a player. But yeah, all the best to you during this and your teams. And I'm sure we'll see you sometime when we're back at the courts.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.